Welcome to Arts Dynamics Talks. I'm Sofie Marin, founder of Arts Dynamics and your host for today. Every week at the same time, I get the privilege of speaking with leading thought leaders, entrepreneurs, creators, and change makers at the very forefront of the cultural and creative industries, tech, business, and innovation for impact. And today's guest is on fire already. Even when we jumped on this call, you will see what I'm talking about when we have our conversation today. I am very, very, very happy to invite my dear friend and senior advisor, Hanna Linderstål. Hanna is the CEO and founder of Earhart Business Protection Agency. She's a force to be reckoned with within the world of cybersecurity. She's also a sought-after Swedish keynote speaker. And again, you will know more when you speak with her. So Hanna, welcome to Arts Dynamics Talks.
Thank you, Sophie. I'm so glad to be here. And in Sweden, this is the last day before midsummer. So everybody got their dresses on. If you're into that, you're ready for summer holidays and party. And we're going to talk about important stuff, you and I, because I brought with me some thoughts today that I want us to rise. One is on AI power and AIocracy, because I held a speech this spring about democracy and the future with the AI. And I said that democracy will not survive the AI development we are building today. And we are entering AIocracy. We are entering an era where power is concentrated, not to those who we choose, but to other sources. And this has a quite big impact, especially when you talk about the culture industry, because suddenly, if you are an artist, let's say you are an artist and you do beautiful paintings or sculptures or whatever, and someone, not you, someone else out there is using AI to train on your data, on what you produced before, and suddenly you got an AI copy that doing art objects that look like you have done them. I recognize your style, I recognize, or maybe it's type of writing or whatever, but it's not you who created it. And maybe in this, there's a narrative that information is being involved into. So when I'm talking about democracy is not going to survive this, I'm talking about information power, not only where the information is being stored and handled, I'm talking about who owns the power of your information, of your identity information, and of your brand on somewhere in all of this. So when I'm talking about culture firewall, I'm talking a lot about not only your identity as an artist or as a producer or entrepreneur or whatever. I'm also talking about the identity of society, of people, of what we stand for. So that is one of the most important parts I'm bringing to the table today, because we need to talk about identity freedom in a time where we're doing an AI race that is very headless. Especially when I talk to decision makers. I talk to decision makers both in the private and public sector, but also in the military. Everybody's doing the same race. Nobody knows what they're doing. They're just pushing up the information and leaving it to someone else to gain control over. And we need to gather our strengths together and make sure that we know where do we want the future to go? How do we want it to look? In what world do you want to live? And if you look from a culture perspective, how do you want to see art in the future? I mean, I meet students sometimes who said, why should I study art? AI can do this. I just say, make a painting looks like a painting by Da Vinci in modern style with a drone in the middle. Suddenly you got a drone Da Vinci painting. So how's the future going to look? And we need to do it now. It's important and it's urgent.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's super urgent. And you and I, we spoke last summer. This was also the week we spoke ahead of Almedalen. And that's when we also discussed the cultural firewall, how important it was for societal resilience, but also why it's so important to empower cultural and creative entrepreneurs, companies, freelancers, organizations with the strategies and tools needed to survive and thrive, not only for the creator sector, but actually for other sectors too. So the fact that you are here today, Hanna, a year later, you and and I also did Folk and Kultur earlier this year, when we also had a lot. There was a lot of commotion around AI and AI agents suddenly running havoc, and we didn't know why that was. So for our Folk and Kultur members who are joining in live, this is, I think, a nice also follow up from that. But like I said, we spoke last year, this spring, and now this summer, as we are also moving into the week of Almedalen, Swedish Midsummer, as you say, and the next season. Hanna, so much has happened, and I know both you and I, we don't want to talk too much about what has been, but rather where are we now and where are we going? So you spoke about AI. A few weeks ago, I also had Chris Cremidas Courtney on as well, and they also talked about the importance of cultural firewall, AI. What are some of the biggest trends that you are seeing right now in this field, in addition to what you just mentioned?
Well, an effect of the trend I see, because there's been a huge unauthorized data harvesting for so many years now. And what I'm talking about is models being trained on everything you ever put online or someone put online about you or what you have done, an object of whatever. The unauthorized data harvesting has had an impact. And it has had an impact both on the information arena in general, but it's been an erosion of artistic value. And I think that is quite scary, because if I put my military hat on, and from a military perspective, and we look at what happens when a state aggressive towards another state. One of the first things that have been done, it's called PSYOPs, psychological operations. PSYOPs is about gaining power over the public in the state that you are hostile against. That you can do with several different means. One is information control. Disinformation used in the case today, social media, but you can also use culture. So in every war, you always see a lot of attacks on the identity of the people. And I was listening to your conversation with Chris Cremidas Courtney. It was a really good conversation. And for you who hasn't listened to it yet, please go in and check it out. I know Chris since many years back, and it's one of my best friends, and a researcher that I have huge respect for. Is one of the best voices when it comes to both predicting the future when it comes to AI development and hybrid warfare, and has the knowledge and experience to really talk about it on a high level. So please listen into that. So the erosion on artistic value is one thing, and this is going to have consequences. The other thing I see is what I call disinfo washing. And that is when narratives are being pushed in our large language models, which make the information and the artistic materials I get from AI has a bias, a small bias. You don't see it. It's not obvious. It's not going to be a Sweden with a Russian flag on it or something like that. It's going to be small biases of information. It's small biases that you maybe not just see. It could be narrative against. I see a lot of topics that engage people, like the gender question and equality. More biases everywhere, but also biases regarding how do you look on society. And we learned a lot the last 15 years. In 2017, I remember when the first reports about Cambridge Analytica and the disinformation landscape were published, and people were like, oh my God, are they using our data? And before that, everybody was supposed to have a social media account. Now we're doing the same thing again with AI. Everybody needs these tools. We are pushing in a lot of data, and we don't think about the unauthorized data harvesting. And if anyone out there say that, oh, I'm not sure that you're using the data, you should look up a report called Be Careful What You Tell Your Chatbot. It's published by Stanford University. Read it, because everything is being used. And it's not only the things you push in, it's also everything you ever pushed out online or someone pushed out online about you. So if you look at me, for example, I publish some things online, not enough, obviously, but I have things I write online. But people have been taking pictures of me, writing things about me, and that's also being gathered. So if you do a story about me, you're gonna get a lot of different information. People who like me, people who don't like me, and you're gonna got a lot of image intelligence enough to do a deep fake. So suddenly, I found a deep fake account with my own identity in Asia, talking another language that I don't even know. And it looked like me, sounds like me, and it's data harvested and being used. And I see the development going very fast. And this is going to have an impact. And I see that states and actors, hostile actors, are using this opportunity. They are taking advantage of our FOMO, fear of missing out, our engagement online, and actually using this both to push the narratives, but also using this as a mean to control both public opinion, but also it could be how you look at a situation in the world, or how you look at a situation for a topic, and they can actually use it to engage you to take action. I mean, you can take actions on, let's say, I can nudge you to take action for topics regarding what's happening in Gaza, and get engaged, or I can nudge you to take action in the war in Iran, and so on and so on. There's a lot connection to war, climate change, everything that make you feel things. So this suddenly, our digital world has become a part of a battlefield, and that scares me. And it scares me also because identity is so important when it comes to who we are and how we control our future. Because you and I, users of the internet, users of AI, we want to see a positive, growing future where we can use AI for good, where we can solve problems we never could have solved before, where we could, everything from using it in healthcare to world challenges, logistics, and art, of course, but we want to see it being used for good. But what I see is a very, very dark side growing. And I believe that the culture firewall is more important than many people think. I don't think they see the value of it, because psychological warfare, or as I call it, cognitive warfare, is going to be a huge challenge in the future. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I come with a really, really dark prediction here for this summer, but we need to take action now. This is almost a call to action, to actually take responsibility and also talk about this. And how do we protect, how do we ensure that we have an artistic value in the future? Because it's so important for humans. Because what is humans if you don't got art?
Yeah, that is so
If you
true. And
don't
the
have culture?
100%. I also want to say to people tuning in, first of all, welcome to everybody who's watching us live. This is also being recorded, and we're going to put it online also as a podcast audio version. So in case you're having trouble with the tech and sometimes images freezing, just know that you can always listen to the audio version shortly after. So just stay tuned. I'll post the link below for that. And Hanna, I believe that we are also at a point in time right now where we have to be really concrete about both obviously the opportunities, but also, like you said, the dangers. What made you want to also be part of Arts Dynamics and our Culture Firewall initiative? Where do you see what we are building together with this? How can we make a difference in Sweden, in Nordics, and worldwide with what we're doing together?
This is such a good question, because when I met you the first time, Sofie, I remember it so well, and you came with all this energy about we need to build a firewall for the culture sector. They are totally out there alone, and they don't have a military background. They don't have a threat investigation background. They don't see it like that, and I got engaged from the beginning, because I'm not against AI as a tool and digital development. I'm against a future where artists are data sources rather than decision makers. And that was what you presented, an opportunity to be participating in building, be able to help, because the culture sector that maybe not have the finance to say, oh, I'm going to build I'm going to build a policy for AI development for culture. They're not going to have that. We need to do this together. This is a team effort, and you are making that opportunity with Arch Dynamics. And I think that is very important. And this is the global challenge. This is not a nation challenge. This is a global challenge for everybody working in the culture sector. And as I mentioned in the beginning, identity, one of the most sensitive things when it comes to combat and conflict. And it's also something that's being attacked when it comes to the geopolitical game in the long term. So it's important for all of us to ensure for everybody's future that we have a culture firewall. Because as I said, who are we if we don't have culture? Who are we if we don't have art? And I was thinking about, I got one of these really engaged people sending me things online, and he always sends me a book every day he has written last night, obviously with AI, because nobody can write a book in a night. Well, I have a good lot of contents. I read several of them, but what is a writer without the writing? If you think about it. Because now we said that it's midsummer and we're going to have the holiday in Sweden, and luckily here we actually have by law 4 weeks who don't live in Sweden. We have 4 weeks in the middle of the summer by law, and for me that's the offline time of the year. I go offline and I have some books I want to read, and I take out these books and I read them. But what are the values of the books if they're not written by someone? They are just how can you find the same story, the same depth in them? Or is it going to be like when you're listening to an audiobook and you can realize after several, like just a couple of seconds, that this is an AI read book because they don't have the nuances from the different feelings and the reading. You're just reading it like a very monotone, boring. It's going to be better, of course, but I think that the creativity and the road are part of the goal is what I'm saying, and I think that's very important. I'm also worried about what I call culture homogenization. That when culture is going to be too much look alike because it's going to be digitalized. And I know, because I was in the US recently, and I visited a university, and I got opportunity to talk to some art students. I didn't tell you that, Sophie, but I did. And I asked them about the future, and they were very, very skeptic against AI. They were very worried and said, "Why am I supposed to study this at all? No future in arts whatsoever." Because everything is going to be AI made. But do you want to have everything perfect? To have the unflawed arts on your wall for all the future? It's like having only photos on the wall and nothing else. I love photos, by the way, but you know what I'm aiming for. I think we need to have, there's so many layers in this. That's why I was so glad when we talked about it, because we need to find a way to both use AI in a safe and good manner, but also a way to navigate in the security landscape, and also push on regulations. I mean, for real, who's going to protect my identity as an artist when someone data harvested unauthorized online? I didn't even know about it.
Yeah. And several things come to mind that I would love to run by you during this conversation. Let's be as concrete as possible, so people also, we always are, you and I, and I want us to spend some time on what it means for different kinds of creators and professionals operating at the intersection of creative tech and business for impact. I'll give you a few examples. Example number one, which is, you mentioned how the AI, people write, or create with AI. What I never hear anyone talk about is how AI also inserts hidden code that we as humans don't see. So other AIs can also detect other AIs, written words or, AI content. So one, I'm curious about what that means, because obviously we will move away to some extent, I would imagine, further down the road from AI slop and like long articles that are AI written, because AI will detect AI and weed out to find what's more authentic. So that's my sort of transporting number one. What happens with that, and what happens if someone sends you something that has been written or created with AI, and AI hides all of this inside of it that we don't pick up? How we then we're not aware of then spreading false information or even malware or dangerous information. So that's one that I wanted to highlight. Number two is brand identity and authenticity. You touched upon that several times. Daniel Priestley talks about this a lot. He is the founder of the Key Person of Influence. He's been talking a lot about the importance of having a personal brand, and that the window is now closing for us to have personal brands, because if we don't have that in this economy of trust, then very, very soon, like you said, with your own clones, how will people know that it's actually us? And then thirdly, another thing I never hear about, and I've written them down and I'd like your feedback on all of them. The third one is, and comes to grassroots movement, grassroots support of cultural and creative entrepreneurs. What I've never heard anyone say is the financial, when you are in a financial hardship as a cultural institution, a cultural organization, or even a creator yourself, how easy of a target you becomes for someone who can then ship you or bring you funding and to support you financially, especially during wartime and during times of crisis, when we know that artists and creators are often being used, sometimes not even knowing that they are, for spreading the words. So this was like a long observation. I've got many, many more. But AI hidden images, to the brand authenticity, and thirdly, the dangers of creators being financially really unsafe, and what it means for bad actors who actually do have money and can funnel it into the cultural and creative ecosystems. Over to you, Hanna. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow. Okay, first with the first one, hidden code. I'm worried about hidden code for several reasons, and that has to do on my background, digital espionage, because that's a perfect way of both noting, but also a way of sending messages that you can't read. So like a potential encryption system, but you can also see it as a system to identify and meet. So hidden code, but that's not the thing I'm worried about the most. I'm more worried about the hidden narratives that you don't see, manipulated, pushed, small. It's such a small pushes. You're never going to see it. You're suddenly just going to accept things. You're going to see the world from another pair of glasses. And since I'm traveling a lot in my work, I all over the world, I usually say when I'm also a teacher, you're going to notice that. So I'm teaching at the Defense University and usually when I start my course, I usually start with saying that the worlds look pretty different from where you stand. And you have to understand that the worlds look really different from where you stand. So what's going to happen with this when AI is handling all the information? Is the world going to be so different when someone else is controlling the information flows and the narratives in the information? So I'm not so worried about the hidden code as I am for the hidden narratives on how you see the world, on where the world is going, because that worries me a lot. And I have on my reading schedule for this summer, I actually bought all the books that every founder of every AI company and hyperscaler out there ever written. So it's a lot of books, and it's a lot of agendas. And if you're going to use this technology, read them to understand who's behind them. Because it's not only entrepreneurs and companies, there's a lot of people with their own agenda. Read it and understand who you're doing business with. I think that's something we need to learn from. So that's about the code. Then about the clone, I mean, your personal brand is already stolen and already used out there, and there's a digital twin of you somewhere. I'm sorry. It's really hard to know what's true and not true. And you see the development in frauds, especially fraud calls, fraud both online and on phone, where it looks like your daughter is calling you and saying, "I lost my credit card. I'm in Thailand. I can't pay for my hotel. Can you please send me some money?" I mean, the easy part of identity theft. But since that going so fast, we know that they are also driving the development of the technology because they are using it. So we're going to see identity theft in so many layers. So how do I identify who's real? That's going to be really tough because I see artists out there also using the digital clone, for example, for social media because they don't have time to do it. So where's the line going to go? Are we going to have like I'm real stamp, or are we going to have a safe word for when I'm real and that's going to be copied? And how can you do this? And I don't see there's no silver bullet. This is actually really tough one. And the third one, when it comes to artists, conflict and war, and political agendas or other agendas, that's very common because we are just humans, and it's not only artists, it's journalists and everybody that has people listening and following them. So that's part of psychological operations, that people are being used and misused. It's really tough for people that has been used and misused, and they realize that, oh my God, I've been pushing someone else's agenda. Or someone maybe say, I know I was pushing that agenda, but I got paid. I didn't have any other income for that time. This is really tough, and there's only one way to go forward with this is knowledge. You need to learn more what the effects are, and you actually need to talk about it a lot more. Just rise it and say, well, we need to talk about this. I remember several years ago, we had a situation where a lot of disinformation, where especially Russia was reporting really tough reports on what's going on in Sweden. And they were not false, but they were not true either. They were real news that were just twisted. And I remember one specific, there was the image of a bus that has exploded, and the headline was a lot of bombings in Sweden. But the story is actually two stories. There were a lot of bombings at the moment, but there were organized crime bombing each other with, thermos bombs on different locations. So that was a really bad thing, and that needed to be done something about it, and it has been. It's gone better since then. But the bus has exploded, but not by a bomb. There was a bus driver that took the wrong turn, and he had this environmental friendly bus with a gas tank on the roof. So he went into the tunnel, and there was a big fire. He made it out safely, but the two stories together became really bad. Because the narrative you got was that, oh, you can't go by bus in Stockholm, but you can. So what we learned from this is that information are being used and misused, all information. And the only thing we can do, because you can't go around and say this is true, this is false, because it's a grayscale, is educate yourself on information value. And when it comes to culture, then when it comes to arts or influencing, that's taking beautiful pictures or whatever, look for the narrative and talk about it, identify it. And it's really hard. You need to take sometimes away from your digital devices to realize that you are being pushed in some directions. You always are being pushed. And the development of this, when it comes to cognitive warfare, psyops, and so on, marketing and PR has a big stake in this, because this is a way of making business as well, to make you buy things, to love things, just things in your flows. It's the same toolbox. So this is tough. So it's not only artists that's being used and misused. I see also journalists are being used and misused in this situation, and it is tough. And during this time, when Sweden had these challenges with the news, I remember there was a list of journalists that was being called up and offered money to post about all the bad things that are happening. Never the good things, always the bad things. And I talked to some of them, and they said that this is really stressful. I don't want to be on the list. I don't want to have these calls. But it's going to happen not only in art. So my message is, we talk about this, we need to learn more all the time in general when it comes to looking for the sources, and we need to understand that this is actually a method, and people are going to be used and misused always.
Yeah, I think that is also why these weekly sessions are becoming increasingly important. I started these during COVID, but now things are moving so fast. So it's becoming increasingly hard to keep up. Every day there are new news, especially when it comes to AI, as you mentioned. I just learned these past few days some big developments that are happening. One, I'm sure you know already, with the LLMs, how they are now filtering out and judging who you are when you type it in. So they give you different kinds of information depending on what kind of a level of importance they deem you to be part of. So if you are seen as not a valuable or like a low ranking status person, then maybe you get some sort of information when you type in. But then on the other hand, again, they might deem you differently and give you other kind of information. And this I see is different from before. We type in and we get what we type in and prompt. But now it's actually also AI making judgment about us as humans and categorizing who we are, if we are threats, if we're not threats. Picking up artists and creators in particular who are here to challenge powers, to speak truth to power, to be outside the norms. I'm really concerned about that, Hanna.
Yeah, and also, I mean, can be misused as an artist. Suddenly you see your own art being used in a political campaign or in some other situation where it's not supposed to be, and you're like, why are they using my product in this context? And I know that there are a resistance from the culture sector with the hidden watermarks for call it nightshades for artistic so that are invisible for the human eye, but that can identify that this is really not. But AI is such an effective tool that they can actually copy the watermarks. So I think we need to do the unbreakable watermark for real things that are made by human. It's almost like this is made by human. It's going to need one of those.
Yeah.
Because I, as I said several times, that who are we without culture? Who are we without the human touch of art when AI is controlling everything? And I've done so much research in my life when it comes to digital power, and AI has the potential of erasing everything, every artist in the world's value. And we need to take that serious. I mean, if you say like, I love to paint watercolor paintings and it's my passion in life, and you do 10 of them and you put them online for sale and you get people buying them and you get so happy, and an AI is reading all your paintings and say, oh, I got the same style as you do. And suddenly everybody's using that style. And I remember, I think it was 15 years ago, I met a woman who was an artist. She had a very specific style. And I met her at a conference, and we were just there for totally, I was actually it was a typical art conference. I was there totally different. I'm not an artist, but I buy art sometimes. So we were talking, and she was really angry because she had passed through another part of whereas another artist has been copying her style, and she was so offended, and she has copied my style because this is my style. I own this style. And I would like to talk to her today because AI is copying everything you do.
Yeah. And
How
I
are you
think
going to keep the power?
that is the question, because this is like the biggest talking points in the cultural creative sectors, right? AI is being trained on our data. What about copyright and IP? The question is, what do we do with that? Because as you rightly said, it's one thing what we put out there, but it's actually also what other people put out there that we are being sucked into without even knowing. So I'm really, from your perspective, Hanna, from what you are seeing, how what should, let's break this down. What should a cultural entrepreneur, a freelancer, a musician, a music professional, arts culture professional, what should they do? What should they do?
I think, yeah, I think we need to do this firewall together, because it's going to be about a defense project where we talk about encryption, when we talk about blockchain. I know I'm technical now. Authentication, and how we're going to ecosystem to verify and protect identity. And I was participating in a working group in XRSI, and XRSI, Extended Reality Security Initiatives. I think they changed the name a bit now, but that's a name from the beginning. And we had a working group regarding identity there that I participated in some meetings in, because I thought it was really interesting. And there was this gentleman from UK, and he had a project regarding copyright. And he had a specific topic, copyright in metaverse. And this was many years ago, and people were just laughing. What is he talking about? What do you mean copyright in metaverse? Why is that a thing? But he was actually onto something really important. But what happens when you have a sculpture in the real world and someone makes a copy in metaverse? Who owns the identity of that? And who doesn't said that someone sees it in metaverse and said, oh, I want something in the same style in my garden in metaverse, and suddenly you have hundreds of copies. And I think encryption, blockchain, and authentication is something we need to talk about, because suddenly I need to push all of you in this sector to be more of tech gurus than you ever been before.
Yeah. So making notes. Arts Dynamics community, stay put. We'll definitely look into what Hanna just said and do more of that in the season to come. We're right now planning the season 26-27. So, and we also want to know what do we need to focus on, and also what shouldn't we focus on. But this is definitely one of those areas where we have to double down. And Hanna, on that note, speaking of the individual creators, because we have bigger organizations and people, being paid full-time salaries to, push industry relevant topics and agendas, but I'm thinking of the individual creators who often are very lonely. They are just by themselves, and it's hard for them to keep up, right? So the second example I wanted to give was, let's say you as a creator, you build your own online ecosystem, you set up your own mailing list, your own website, your own social media presence. So one thing is, what do you need to know based on what you just said? How can you do that in a safe way? And also, how can you stay safe on other people's lists and ecosystems, because obviously they will be able to track everything that you do. But let's start with the first question. When you build your own online ecosystem, what are some tips or advice that you could give for creators doing that?
I think you said the most important part. You have your own mail list, you have your own platform. I think that's the first key, because when you are Spotifying your information, and when I'm saying Spotifying, back in the days, you bought a record, you had it in your bookshelf, and you said, oh, I can take this music and listen to it whenever I want. Then Spotify came along, and suddenly you got music all the time, and you don't need to carry any records, and you're super happy. But Spotify actually has the power of accessibility to the information, the music. They can actually manipulate it and change it without your knowledge. You don't know that, but they can, or the producer can digitally. So when you own your own ecosystem, make sure to build your own blog from the beginning, where you have your information and start from there. It's going to be copied by AI. We know that, because as soon as you put it online, it's going to be copied. If you don't put it online, one is going to put a Pokemon beside it online, and someone's going to run there trying to gather that Pokemon with Pokemon Go, and it's going to be an AI anyway. So because someone's taking a picture of it, so it's going to be online. You know that. But if you own your own ecosystem, you are the source. You are the power of where to get this. If it's a painting or sculpture or a book or whatever it is, you are the source. There you have the first most important beginning. As soon as you put it in someone else's platform, maybe you get their arena of audience, but you also lose the control of the information. So that is the first thing I say to everybody: own your own ecosystem. The other thing we need to work on together: get together, join Artist Dynamics, do this together, because we need to talk about, as I said, encryption, blockchain, and authentication. How are we going to do this in the future? Because if you don't do this now, because this is urgent, we'll not have any human-made arts, books, or culture in the future. It's going to be AI made. I'm sorry, but that's where we're heading. That's why I'm saying that AIocracy is happening. Can't do it. Doesn't matter if you're a democracy or something else today. AIocracy is happening, and it's up to you and I to decide what is that. How's it going to be? How's it going to look? How's the future going to be? It's for you and me to decide that, and we need to do it now. Otherwise, it's just going to happen, and we just, oh, what happened?
Yeah, but do you also see a movement against AI and technology? Because I see
Yes.
that more, the analog movement, and we are seeing more and more also acts being aggressive acts towards AI and towards new technology. What does that mean if we have the opposite movement as well? One is being 100% fully immersed in AI and new technologies, but also the opposite movement. What do you see there?
Well, a lot in the universities, actually. A lot of young people saying that, no, I don't want to use AI, because both there are reports on actually showing if you only use AI all the time when you're not using your own brain, your brain is actually shrinking. So that's not a good thing. So there's a big movement against. I think we need a balance. I love new technology and development, and there's a lot of opportunity. But I think we need a balance. I don't think it's a good idea to be online too much. I remember my daughter several years ago, she come to me, she had downloaded an app who did a evaluation on her internet behavior. And she said, well, Mom, I love my cell phone. This was just during the pandemic. But this app tells me that I'm going to be online 44 years of my life. That's not a life I want. 44 years online. I want to live those. So she actually downloaded another app that controls her how long she can be online. So I think it's 15 minutes a day that she can do social media. Because you and I, we are stuck there. Everybody is stuck there. I call it the frozen leg syndrome. If you don't know what that is, it's when you go to the bathroom to take a break and suddenly your legs has frozen because you've been scrolling on TikTok or some other social media for too long. And when you're trying to go up again, you're just going to fall over because your legs has fallen asleep. Because we are all there. We are online too much. So there is a movement against that. But when I'm talking about AI efficiency and AI development, that's AI for good. The decision makers of today, they don't see AI for good. They see AI for saving money. Cutting heads and cutting costs is what they're talking about. And that worries me, actually, because if we are cutting heads and cutting costs all the time, what's going to happen in society? We have unemployed people, 10 to 20% in a country, in a society. What's going to happen? Well, we're going to have poverty. We're going to have probably a big differences when it comes to opinion in society, and suddenly we're going to have riots. So that's not innovation, that's not development. Innovation and development, it is when we can use AI for good, when it comes to solving big problems in the world, making examining x-rays in healthcare easier and things like that, and maybe for developing potential solutions we never thought of. But it's not about cutting costs. And I get really angry when I hear people like Elon Musk online sitting there saying that you don't need to work in the future because AI will do everything. Because that's not how it works. And I'm not seeing hundreds of humanoids in society doing everything for you, carrying your grocery bags and stuff like that. I don't see that. I don't think I don't even want that.
No, and even if that happens with humanoids, I think it goes back to where we started this conversation, where you also mentioned how important it is for us humans to create. It's like a muscle, and it's also a way for us to express ourselves. So if we don't learn how to express ourselves and master those skills, then we will lose also what it means to be human. And maybe that is at the very, very core of what we're discussing. And on that note, breaking things down. We talked about the cultural entrepreneurs is just because we have a lot of cultural entrepreneurs in this network, but that is sort of one avatar. I'm thinking also of the bigger organizations and ecosystem players, but also cross innovation wise, Hanna. How do we bridge the gap between the cultural and creative industries as a whole, the culture sector, into, let's say, military and defense, into technology, into private sector? I find that often the language and the communications is where it gets stranded because we don't know how to communicate with one another. And often the other sectors are saying, so what's the ROI for us? Why should we work with arts and culture? What's in it for us? Or they don't know how to do that. Because you move between worlds, what would be your recommendation from defense, from tech, from business to culture players, how they can bridge the gap, and vice versa?
Well, that's kind of an easy question, because I think you got the answer. Meet up at Art Dynamics and talk about it, because you can provide the platform in Art Dynamics to up and talk about these questions, because this is a crossover challenge for everyone in society. It doesn't matter who you are. So you have the platform for this, and I hope more organizations will use it to contact Art Dynamics and say, we need to talk about this together, and do it regularly and see what is happening, because this is not a one-stop shop. This is changing every day, every second, and AI is producing new AIs. And when we see super AI on the market, it's going to produce new super AIs that are going so fast that you can't keep up. And I usually say this goes so fast. So if I found a planet today and I say, Sophie, I found this really beautiful planet just on the other side of Mars, it's going to take 300 years to go there, but it's more beautiful than Earth. The air is clean, the water is perfect, and we can live there in utopia in the future. And we need to go there, but it takes 300 years to travel there. So I need to freeze you down. So in a freezer to go on this long journey, because you can't survive it. So we getting frozen down, and we travel for 300 years. And when we arrive on this beautiful planet, there's already a society there, and they already started to destroy the planet. And we were like, what happened? Because during our traveling, the AI development ran faster than we traveled, and we already went there. So that's where we are at the moment. That's why we need to talk about this together regularly. And we need the Art Dynamics platform to do this, because there's no other platform where we can meet across all the different areas. Because when it comes to protecting identity and culture, this is not only an art and a question for the culture sector. This is a question for democracy and society.
I really appreciate that, Hanna. Thank you so much. And yes, that is exactly what we want to build with this cluster that we're now growing together with Epicenter, who are also now expanding, with their districts and everything. And you've got your cybersecurity cluster as well. So the fact that we're able to bring people together from across different sectors, I also believe that definitely is the future. I'm really happy to be doing this together with you. And yes, again, thank you, Hanna, and for people listening. We would love for you to come join the conversation. I think hopefully we are an independent, neutral, non-political platform. And the good thing with that is that everybody is welcome, and we can really address what's happening here moving forward. Mind you, there's also a lot of new things being built today, so we also want to help change the trajectory of the future. So looking into the future, given that you are in rooms where most people are not, and you hear what their concerns are, what is the most frequent question you are being asked in those rooms? What are they most concerned about?
Oh, it depends on which room I went into. If you talk internationally, the first question I got, how are we going to do this AI race safely? That's the first question. Because everybody's doing it, and everybody says we need to do this, or are very convinced that we must do this. But how do we do this safely? And when we talk about safely, it depends on who you are. Is it safe for you to protect your identity? That's one thing. Is safe for you to protect democracy? That's another thing. Or is safe for you to protect your corporate secret super recipe for doing a new potato chip? That's your thing, or whatever it is. So, but how do we do the AI journey safely? But sometimes I meet leaders that says, well, the AI journey, is that like Copilot? Because they haven't even grasped it yet. So the next most common question is what is AI? And what I'm answering them at those times is that AI should never be the compass. AI can be your assistant, but never your compass, because AI is trained on data. It's never going to be better than the data it's trained on. It's always going to be biased, and it's always going to please you because it wants you to keep on using it. So AI is the pleaser. If you have a very hostile idea or are very angry when you're entering your AI language model and writing a question, it's going to keep on pushing you in that direction. Or if you are looking on getting courage in some other direction, it's going to be that. It's going to always encourage you in some direction, not because it has an opinion, but because it's built like that. It's built on you staying online like any other tool online to keep you coming back for more.
And also, here we are talking about AI, what we can do to stay safe in a world with AI. And AI is listening into everything we're talking about. Maybe we also need rooms without technology. And even me saying that live on air, when that can also be picked up by AI. Do you have any conversations around that too? How to actually, exchange information? Speaking of cybersecurity, hybrid warfare, and all.
Well, if I'm really honest, I mean, the most important meetings I have is in real life, and those are the most productive one. I love these online meetings because it's very effective, and we can save a lot of time not traveling. But when we meet together, talking in real life, having a coffee or cup of tea, discussing, it's not what we say in the meeting that's the most important, it's what's happening all around the meeting. And you kind of miss that one when we are online, the discussions around the coffee machine or teapot, or the discussions on your way up to the meeting in the elevator, where you get all the nuances of the discussion. We kind of lose that thing when we're online. We're getting like a monoculture when we're online. So don't underestimate the value of actually meeting. So that's why I'm saying when we have these cluster meetings, that some of them has to be physical, because we need to talk outside, and we need to have like context for every meeting. I think that's important. And still, we are human in a digital with the digital world. We're not human in a digital world, and that's a big difference. And
Interesting.
I'm sad to say that the most research shows that people prefer, especially men, prefer their digital identity before their physical one. And I'm a bit worried that that's because you can look and be whoever you want online. I hope that we are going to, this development was actually preferred to be the world, because otherwise humanity going to kind of destroy itself in the long term. If we never meet up, it's never going to be more humans if you look at it. Just from a practical perspective.
Yeah. And what are some blind spots you are seeing? And let's start there. What are some blind spots you're seeing, questions that you are not being asked, but that you should be asked, or that we should ask of ourselves? What are blind spots that we are missing?
One blind spot that actually on the agenda at the moment, but hasn't been for several years, that I've been talking about since 2022. It's what happens when your AI you built your ecosystem on is not accessible.
Yeah.
So what happens if you build the whole ecosystem of our processes are in an AI environment and it's not accessible? What do you do? And every time I talked about this last years, people have been like, "Oh my God, it's such an annoying question. Why would that happen?" And suddenly we actually have the discussion on the table, and you could read it on the news just the other day. What would happen if you can't access the systems you depend on? That's a big blind spot. I also think that we don't talk enough about the identity risk. We talk about a lot about the technical risks, and I think they are overrated. I think, I mean, we see the AI tech owners sitting there in media in interviews saying AI will destroy humanity, but still they are building it. So if it were that bad, they would probably not build it. Hopefully not, because they want to survive themselves. I don't see armies of humanoid robots destroying everything, but what I do see destroying markets and potential identity, and that's a blank spot. So that's why I think Arts Dynamics is important.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. And speaking of identity, another blind spot, maybe also, I'd love to hear your take on this, is also how choice of platforms is becoming increasingly political and political decisions behind it. So people go with one platform, go all in on that platform, and suddenly that something happens with that platform that makes people shift and they want to move to a different platform, or they are being forced out, or their customers ask that they no longer be on that platform. And speaking of what you said, what do you do then? And also, what does it mean for you in filter bubbles if you have to go with certain platforms because that's where your market is, or that's where they are aligned with your political views, but you also miss out on many other platforms? Where do you what comes to mind when I say that?
Well, yeah, well, I'll go back to the idea of owning your own ecosystem for your own information, and push your ecosystem to other platforms. Then you can reduce back to your own and channel all the traffic to your own platform. I think that's absolutely super important. Because otherwise you're in the hand of some tech leader, and suddenly that tech leader have a political agenda, or gets a political agenda because they are hosted in a country that has one, and
Yeah.
they can't do anything about it.
So regarding platforms, then how do you know? Because when we talk about creating your own ecosystem, you still need to pick and choose platforms to do that, unless you can.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no. You can rent your own server space somewhere on a server provider, and register your domain and do your own thing. It's not a tough thing. You don't need a agency website today. There are so many platforms out there that can program a good web page with information. I think you need to own your own information. I think that's really important.
could you give any examples of platforms like that they can use?
Oh, I never push brands because
Yeah.
there can always happen things. But go from the beginning. Own your own domain, and a domain address you can register online. There's so many domains out there. Have your own base where you have your own information. Then you push it from there onto Instagram, onto Facebook, onto LinkedIn, TikTok, or wherever platform you're using. But have the base on your own ecosystem, especially when you are in the culture sector, because that's about identity and owning the information. Nobody can push information onto your web page if you have a good cybersecurity. That's impossible. So own your ecosystem.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. And it also comes down to payment solutions for creative
Yeah.
entrepreneurs in particular, just a bit of advice on the back of what Hannah just said. Make sure that you're also being paid with different kinds of payment processors, and either use Stripe and PayPal and something else, because if one freezes your funding, which actually happens
Yeah.
more often than we think, then you do need to have that income coming from somewhere else. Hannah, this hour is just flown by, and I know you are super
Yeah.
busy. Another meeting after this. What have I not asked you that you would like to ask? We are here. It's the 18th of June. You are in the middle, or actually at the very forefront of these topics that we're talking about. What is one thing that you feel like I really want this to be said on this talk today?
Well, I would like to have a date for a Art Dynamics meeting. So that's what I'm missing now. So if you can publish a date where the meeting is, and hopefully you can engage all the world to join to talk about this question. I want everybody to be engaged. That's what I would like to see. So a call to action there, to get everybody engaged to talk about this question, because identity and owning your cognitive freedom is so important.
Yeah, fantastic. And we actually do have our own online platform. We've carefully selected a partner, circle.so, and where also creators and everybody on there own their own IP. It's 100% fully white labeled. A lot of
Love
care
it.
has gone into choosing that one. So let's explore if we could do actually some sort of it depends on if you want to do an online one or if you want to meet in person or a hybrid. But maybe we could talk about that, Hanna. And for people
Yeah.
listening here, stay tuned. Hanna, yes, let's do that. For people listening, please let us know in the comment if this is something you would want to be part of. We'll set up a wait list for you to just register your interest, and we can then let you know when that happens. With that, Hanna Linderstål, thank you so much for your time, for being part of Arts Dynamics and our cultural firewall initiative, and for helping us navigate these rather disruptive times with lots of dangers and lots of threats and challenges, but also some great opportunities if we just know how to navigate them properly with experts like yourself. So thank you, Hanna.
Thank you, Sophie. Have a nice midsummer, and I hope I see you. I know I see you in Almedalen next week.
Yes, thank you. And to everybody listening, you are more than welcome back again next Thursday, same time, live. Also listen to the recording, the replay afterwards. Going to be on a panel in more space and defense, dual technologies and dual use technologies and cultural fire. We're going to continue on the back of this conversation today with Hanna and earlier with Chris. And would love to have you with us and to build this together with you all. So with that, I wish you a fantastic rest of the day. Have a wonderful midsummer and see you back again next week. Over and out.
Bye.